Thank you.
Just let me know when you want it, when you're ready to go.
Okay.
All right, well, we will get started. My name is Brenda Schaefer-Pellenin. I am a planner with the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. I work under what's called the Elder Care Development Partnership Program grant, where we work with service providers and local governments and other partners to develop innovative programs and pilot changes and look at ways to utilize technology and bring resources into our area. So I really appreciate your interest in the topic today. With a large amount of our housing stock in the Arrowhead region, older housing stock, it can be a challenge to find options that are ready to be made for a home for a lifetime. And AARP research consistently finds that a vast majority of individuals age 50 and older want to remain in their homes and their communities as long as possible. And why wouldn't they? So the AARP HomeFit Guide was created to help folks stay in their homes that they love by turning them into a lifelong home suitable for themselves and anyone else in their households. So we were going to have Jean here with us today, but unfortunately it's Minnesota, and even though it's April Fool's Day, the inclement weather has made it so that Jean is stuck down in the Twin Cities, and so he's going to be joining us virtually. But I'd like to welcome Gene Nicolelli, our speaker. He is an aging in place specialist, a certified aging in place specialist. He's an award-winning architect, licensed in Minnesota and California with expertise in universal design, and has over 40 years of experience in residential architecture. So Gene's going to take some time today to walk us through some of the HomeFit Guide and share his own advice on modifications that will help people to stay in the home where they want to be. So I will turn it over to Gene. Gene?
All right. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Thank you for joining us today. And again, I apologize. Like I said, like Brenda said, between the weather and then to make matters worse, I ended up coming down with a cold. So probably best I do this virtually. So I do appreciate everybody who was expecting an in-person and having to deal with virtual today. We have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to jump right into it. And like Brenda said, hopefully today, what I'm going to be doing is giving you a lot of different information. Hopefully, the goal for me is that it'll be like a starting point for you, a foundation, if you will. So hopefully what you're able to gather from today's seminar and then be able to take that and hopefully do some additional research and look at your home differently and see if there's things that you can do to make it more friendly and such. With that, let's get into it here. So today what we're trying to do, the objectives are kind of threefold. We want to recognize how a home can be modified to support changing needs and lifestyles by making your home more adaptable, usable, and safe. Also, we want to be able to determine which modifications are important for maintaining the lifestyles that you desire. And then lastly, we want to hopefully distinguish between what modifications that you can do yourself and those that would be left best to a professional, whether it be an architect, kitchen, bath designer, interior designer, or a contractor, whomever. So let's, I guess the first thing I'd like to do is talk about some of the physical changes that we experience as we age. Sure, we all wish we could be healthy for many, many years and not have any aches and pains, but seems like as every year goes by, a new ache or pain decides to knock on our door. So anyway, by age 30, your body has reached peak functioning. By age 35, bones start to shrink in size and density. Also by age 35, muscles and joints begin to lose strength, endurance, and flexibility. By age 40, our eyesight begins to weaken and close-up vision starts to blur. By age 60 years old, we need 3 more times more ambient light to see than a 20-year-old. And by 65, 1 in 3 people have some degree of hearing loss. So with all these changes, they can result in bones breaking more easily, slowed and limited movement, reduced reflexes and coordination, difficulty with balance, diminished peripheral vision, and need for hearing devices. Couple definitions here I'd like to take care of. The first one is aging in place. Obviously, I can't see by a show of hands how many people are familiar with the term aging in place. I will assume that most, if not all of you, are familiar with it. But it's basically defined as the ability to live in one's home and community in a safe, independent, and comfortable manner, regardless of age, income, or ability. Now, another term here is that you may not be familiar with is universal design. And if you're not familiar with it, that's fine, because it's something that's a term that's used more in the design profession than you see it out in the public. But universal design is important to know and to understand. And it's the design and composition of the built environment or a product, built environment being buildings, landscape, parks, what have you, and products being the things that you use on a daily basis. And so to be able to make these things easily accessed, understood, pardon me, and used to the greatest extent possible by all people, regardless of their age, size, ability, or disability. One thing that's important, it is not a special requirement for the benefit of only a minority of the population. That generally is the Americans with Disabilities Act that addresses people with specific disabilities, people that have vision problems, hearing problems, people that have to use a wheelchair and what have you. However, in the same sense, universal design does borrow some of the design standards of the ADA, which as we get more into it, you'll see where these similarities come about. Lastly, the one thing that Mary Jo Peterson, she's a kitchen and bath designer and has been involved with universal design, oh gosh, going back to the 70s. And so she's one of the founding people in this, in the development of universal design. And I think she coins it very nicely. Universal design strives to support the lifestyle we wish to live through convenience and support in subtle and beautiful ways. When it's done right, you don't know it's there until you benefit from it. And that's very important. And what you'll be seeing this afternoon are things that we can do that integrate and hopefully to the point where they're there, but yet you don't know they're there. So the thing is with aging in place, that is the goal. And universal design is how you get there. So now what we're going to do today is we're going to look at what's wrong with our house, some of the challenges that we find. And we're going to look at we're going to kind of focus on the main entry, the kitchen, the stairs, the bathroom, and then we're going to look at just some other miscellaneous things to consider. So let's start with the main entry. So the first thing we have to do is we got to get up to the doors, up to the front door or to the door into the home. So what are some of the challenges that we normally see? If you look at the lower right photo, you can see that there's quite a few steps you have to climb, and then you get to a landing that's generally very small, and you have to kind of get out of the way to open up the screen door. And the other problem that you see is you have a very minimal covering over the door, just a little like maybe 2-foot overhang. So there's not much protection from the elements as you're trying to get in the door. If you look at the upper left corner, also just another example, more of a Rambler style home. Not as many steps as you have to climb, but still you have to climb up, go up a couple of steps to get there. And again, very minimal covering over the entryway. And then up in the upper right is just, again, with a lot of the homes, you have a typical door knob, entry door, knob to get into the front door. And then at the lower left, the thing is, once you hit the landing, okay, so you go up the stairs, you notice you still have to go anywhere from 2 to 6 inches to be able to get into the house. So you still have one more step that you have to encounter. So what we need to do is we need to eliminate steps altogether. So there's a couple ways of doing it. The one way of doing it is by incorporating a walkway. A walkway works best if you have, if it's the distance between the ground and the level of the entry door is no more than 18 inches. Generally, as you can see with these examples, different ways that you can create that walkway. The walkways are generally, the way they work is for every 1 foot of rise, you go back 20 feet. So if you had to go up 18 inches, you would technically need about 30 inches of walkway to be able to get up there to get to that front door. So this is one of the examples that we borrow from the Americans with Disabilities Act as far as one of the standards that they use. Now, if you're greater than 18 inches, then you're probably looking at having to incorporate a ramp. And a lot of times you'll see ramps located at the front of the home. The main reason for that is your front door is generally 36 inches wide, so it can provide for an array of different elements. Again, you have to understand, even with the walkway, so it makes it easy for someone who uses a walker or who has to use a wheelchair, or even a young couple with a child in a stroller. The idea, again, is so you don't have to use the stairs. With ramps, again, the rule of thumb is for every 1 foot of rise, go back 12 feet. So again, if you're using a walker or using a wheelchair, you still can do it on your own power without needing assistance. Now, in addition to going through the front door, maybe you have an older home where you have a detached garage that's at the rear. So maybe there's an opportunity, if you already have like maybe a rear deck to get to the backyard, or if you're considering doing it, maybe there's an opportunity to incorporate a ramp that can be part of the deck to be able to get into maybe the rear of the house through maybe modifying a sliding glass door, or maybe there's a door that's already there that you can use to access into the home. Another option is where you have garages attached to the house. Now, if you're willing to give up a parking space, you can possibly integrate a ramp into the garage itself. And the only thing you need to do is make sure of a couple of things. Make sure that the door getting into the home, which is generally goes into either like a mudroom or possibly a laundry room, and to make sure that door is wide enough that you can again, if a worst case scenario, you're in a wheelchair, at least you can get into that space with the wheelchair. And then when you're in that room, want to make sure, can I make a 90-degree turn or whatever? Can I maneuver with a wheelchair to be able to get into the home? So something that you'd have to think about. Now, and getting back to the exterior, to the main front door, ideally what you want to do is you want to have a minimum of a 5 foot by 5 foot area of a landing, and then have and translate that with a roof covering with the same dimensions. Now, if you'll notice, now down here in the metro area, a lot of the cities have recognized the need for these porches, and if you look at a lot of residential houses are generally set back anywhere from 25 to 30 feet from the street front yard, from the right-of-way setback line. It's almost like if you look down, you can see a nice straight road. Well, cities are recognizing again that people need to have some covering for the front door and such. So they've actually got it, a lot of cities have it in their ordinances where they allow you to put a covered porch or entry, not covered, but an open entry porch with the roof covering. And that's one of the stipulations. So long as it's open on all three sides, they permit it. And they have different sizes that they allow and how far you can encroach and such like that. So every city is a little bit different. So if it's something that you're considering doing, I'm not sure if you're a resident of Duluth, what if they have any city ordinances, to do that. But it's something you might want to look into if you wish to incorporate that. If you look at the lower left, you can kind of see an example. This was a project in Edina where we were able to incorporate an open porch covering to the front door. So again, it makes it easier to that transition as you're going into the front of the house. One last thing I would like to comment, you want to make sure that your address numbers are nice and large, that you can see from the street. And even if you can have them lit at nighttime with a porch light or something like that, it comes in handy. Again, in a worst case scenario where you may need to have an emergency vehicle come to your home, you don't want to have them going up and down the street trying to look for where your house is located if they can't see the home address. So we're at the front door. We're not quite inside yet, but the last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the landing, the front porch landing, is at the exact same elevation equal to what the entry floor is. And then go with what they call a zero clearance threshold. So basically, which only has maybe a maximum 1/4 of an inch height to it, so you can roll over it easily, whether it be with a walker, again, a stroller, or a wheelchair as well. And being that they're covered, that if you are able to cover that entryway, there's always going to be a slope to it, usually a 1/4 inch slope of the landing, to make sure water runs away from the house. And then if you have a roof covering, chances of rain, water, whatever getting in there is pretty minimal anyway. So again, this is a way, if you're using this as your main way into the house, when you have a mobility issue, this is how you'd want to handle it. And then lastly, with the front door, I'm sure most homes are converting it to lever handles. So that's the way you want to go in terms of replacing it from a door handle. Excuse me. Came down with the cold at the wrong time. So now we're inside the house. So let's take a look at some of the challenges that we find in a kitchen. Let's start at the upper left corner. And especially in the older homes, post-World War II homes built in the 40s, 50s, and even the 60s, it's not uncommon to have one light fixture in the center of the kitchen, and then maybe one other light fixture that's over the sink. So there's light, but there's just really not a lot of light source into that kitchen. And then in the middle there, a challenge that most people have, obviously, if you're more petite, it becomes more of a challenge. If you're 5 feet, 5'4", it becomes almost like climbing Mount Everest if you're trying to get something into the upper cabinets. And then again, looking at the upper right, talking about the upper cabinets again, and even the base cabinets. When you open them up, you notice how they just kind of open up a little bit more than 90 degrees. It's not really a big deal, but again, it can be kind of cumbersome if you're trying to remove things in and out of the upper cabinets. You may have to adjust your arms, your elbows, and such, what have you. Then in the lower right, notice the doors and the drawers have got doorknobs to open and close the doors and the drawers. And then all the way to the left, lower left, just basically the problems that we encounter when we have to retrieve things from the base cabinets. So let's see how we can address some of these issues. The first thing let's talk about is light, general lighting and task lighting. I'm a big fan of you never can have enough lights in the kitchen. You do so many things in the kitchen, it just really makes a lot of sense to have it nice and bright. And when I use the kitchen, I do a lot of the cooking in our household. Gosh, I mean, I'll turn on every single light I can, every switch I can, just to be able to get enough task lighting and such. So the thing is, if you're remodeling your home, by all means, you want to go ahead and add more light fixtures in the ceiling. Also, what you want to do is you want to have task lighting, be able to have lighting underneath the upper cabinets that shine directly onto the countertop. Now you may say, okay, that's fine, Gene, but you know what? I'm not looking to remodel my kitchen. I want to kind of work with what I have. Well, there are things you can do for task lighting. There are battery operated LED light fixtures that you can purchase that can be adhesively or mechanically attached to the underside of the upper cabinet, and they work off of a battery. There's also some LED light fixtures that you can actually have a plug that you can plug it into the a outlet as well. I'm not a big fan of those for two reasons. Number one, you kind of have a cord hanging down and it kind of looks ugly. And then number two, you're sacrificing one of your outlets, to use for one of your appliances or what have you. So, but there is that opportunity that exists out there. And then down at the bottom, again, if you have an island, a kitchen island, again, you want to make sure that you have task lighting. So you might want to get some if you don't already have it, get some pendant lights, some hanging lights that are low to the surface. So again, the light source is right where you need it. Now let's talk about cabinets in general. We'll start with the upper cabinets. Now, all the way up to the upper right, the kitchen and bath industry has really gotten on board with universal design and have come up with a lot of wonderful products, third-party products to make using upper and base cabinets more easy and more efficient and safe. The one up in the upper right is actually a set of shelves that work off of a hinge system that brings the shelving down to you to make it easier to put things onto the countertop and to put things back onto the shelf and move them in and out of the way. And then in the middle there, earlier when I talked about how the cabinet doors kind of open up a little past 90 degrees, well, there's a product here, it's called a 160 hinge, where actually it takes that door now and it moves it completely out of the way. So it makes it easier to access, to bring things in and out of the upper and lower cabinets. And then if we go to the bottom, we always have that corner cabinet, where a lot of times you have to get on your hands and knees and you have to stick your head in there to try to retrieve something. And so that's where you put your stuff that you use once a year or only on occasion. But now they've got products out there, like in this particular one, there's many different types of examples out there that are available to you. But this one here is kind of like a half lazy Susan, where it kind of works, it pivots, and then it works and it sets in and fits into that back portion of the cabinet. Plus, but you can pull it out to be able to retrieve it. So it's a real handy device. And then in the middle, where you have drawers or shelving, where you have a door, again, third-party products are available where you have shelves. The idea is to be able to bring your pots and pans, dishes, what have you, out to you versus you having to go in and retrieve them in a fixed shelf. So you can see this example here. But notice how, again, you notice how the door opens up a little over 90. If you have that 160 hinge, now you can get that door even more out of the way to make it more easily accessible for you. And then all the way to the lower left, one thing I did in my research is I've noticed in all price points, from literally out of the box cabinetry to all the way up to custom cabinetry, that drawers are becoming more popular than doors where you have the shelving. And again, it's just easier. Again, you're taking the drawer, pulling it out, and you're able to retrieve things from the drawer versus having to go on your hands and knees to retrieve them. One other thing I want to mention, again, and this particular example in the lower right, this is for a client who is very petite. She was like 5 foot tall at that. And so what we did is we actually uses where you have the kick space. We were able to create in a couple locations where she could kick the space underneath it, and a step would come out, so she could literally step onto that, and then it gave her about another 3.5 inches to be able to use the upper cabinet, to use the countertop, and also to retrieve things from the upper cabinet. One other thing I would like to mention about the upper cabinet, the buildings, the standard in the industry is from the countertop to the underside of the upper cabinet is 18 inches. However, you can bring it down to 15 inches. And that extra 3 inches, again, makes it easier to retrieve things from the upper cabinet. And the only thing that you have to make sure that whatever appliance that you might stick underneath between the counter and the upper cabinet is going to fit within that 15 inches. Most items generally do for the most part. And then lastly, if you go back up to the upper right, you'll see just a bunch of different handles, what they call D as in dog handles. So it's the idea, instead of having, pinching using a doorknob, that you have to kind of use your thumb and your index finger to open up a drawer or a door. The hinge, you can use your 2 to 3 to 4 fingers to be able to pull out that drawer. It just makes it easier. I have arthritis in my thumbs real bad, and it's getting to the point where having to grip with using my thumb to grip things is becoming more and more difficult. So again, this is something that's an easy fix that a lot of these things you can do on your own. Now let's talk about the countertops. Now, if you're going to remodel your kitchen, you're going to gut it out and put in new cabinetry, you might want to take a look at it and see if there's any opportunities. Instead of the standard of the industry, again, it's 36 inches from the floor to your 36 to 37 inches to the countertop. Whereas if you could find an area that you could drop it down to 30 inches, which is generally the height of your tabletop, and you can now sit down and work on if you're preparing preparing dinner or whatever, cutting up vegetables or what have you, you can do it in a sitting down versus standing up and having to do it. And also another thing is if you go at 42 inches, is the standard height, you can go a little bit higher. If you want to have like create an eating surface, with using stools or what have you, or again, an area that you want to just stand up and be able to prepare meals or what have you. So something to consider. Now, the one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the countertop and the floor colors are different. You can see with this example here, there's kind of a dark brown, brown color flooring, and they've gone with a white with maybe a accent of sparkly of a brown just to tie everything together. But it's the idea that you want to have that contrast. You don't want to have a white floor with a white countertop, because if you're transferring food from one countertop to the other one, if you're not paying attention, and as our vision becomes a little bit more challenging as we get older, you might miss that countertop, and then everything ends up on the floor, and you might injure yourself if it's a hot food or what have you. The other thing is too, something simple. Wherever you have edges, you want to make sure that they're round. The countertop edges are round and not sharp corners. Again, if you might walk into them and you can damage and hurt yourself if you're not paying attention. And then the other thing is, now that we've added all that extra light to the kitchen, the surfaces you want to eliminate glare. So you want to go with non-glaring countertops and floor surfaces. And then lastly, you want, I really don't care, you want to make sure that whatever floor surface you use, whether it's tile, luxury vinyl tile, regular vinyl tile, sheet vinyl, wood flooring, what have you, you want to make sure that when you talk to who's ever supplying you the material, that it is slip resistant. Again, it's a surface that, kitchen has water spills on the floor. You just don't want to make sure, you want to make sure that you don't slip and fall in that kind of a condition. So now let's look into the stairs. Talk about stairs a little bit. What do we typically see? If you go to the lower right, you'll notice that a lot of times the stair, the floor and the landing and the stairs themselves are all one color, one coordinated color. And then in the middle there, in the upper middle, you'll see where you have stairs going up and you'll have a handrail on one side. And then if you go to the left, lower left, very typical, you have a light source fixture that's at the ceiling at the top of the stairs and a fixture at the bottom of the stairs. But you don't have any light at where you need it, the stairs itself. So let's see what we can talk about, what we can do to resolve this. One thing I want to bring to your attention is falls are the leading cause of injury-related deaths among people 65 and over. And stairs are a major contributor to those statistics. Bathrooms are also add to that, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So what can we do about the stairs? Now, if you ever notice, when you go into a commercial building, you notice that there's a handrail on both sides of the stairs. And you go, oh, that's interesting. However, for residences, the building code only requires a handrail on one side of the stairs. Well, one of the easiest things you can do is to add a second handrail. Making sure you have a handrail on both sides of the stairs. My parents had a house where they had a tuck under garage. So what happened was they would have to go down the stairs in the basement to get to the garage to get into the and to use the car. As my mother got older, it became more and more difficult for her to go down those stairs, to the point where she literally had to grab the one handrail with both of her hands and gingerly walk down each step. When we added a second handrail, now she was able to grab the handrail on both sides. Stairs are only 3 foot wide generally, maybe in the newer homes, 36 or 42 inches, 3 foot 6 inches wide, which is still easily to be able to reach. My mother was only 5'4", so she was fairly petite, and she had no problem grabbing the handrails going down. But gosh, it gave her so much more confidence going up and down the stairs. She couldn't run up and down the stairs, but at least she could get up and down the stairs without somebody having to assist her. Now, if you look at the lower right, now the other thing that you want to do with stairs is make sure that the stairs are like a different color or have a contrasting color from the landing and or the floor when you hit the bottom of the stairs and the top of the stairs. Again, it becomes a visual thing. It just makes it easier to identify where that last step is. I don't know about you, but there's been many times where I'm thinking and I was done with the steps and I hit one more step, or hit that last step thinking there was one more step. So anyway, again, as I mentioned, you want to make sure that the stairs need to have light source at the stairs. So a couple ways you can do it. If you look at the right, again, if you wish to bring in an electrician, or there's one really great way of doing it is they've got LED light fixtures that are like on a strip. So you usually the lip of the stairs, you've got anywhere from 1 to 1.5 inches overhang. So it's a perfect place to be able to put the LED lights fixtures underneath it. And that way each step has a complete light source balanced as you're going down the steps on the tread. Another one, as you can see with the kind of middle lower example, is what I call theater lights. Again, as you see in theaters, like every third or every fourth light riser, there's a light fixture. So again, getting that light source directly to the close to the stairs. Now you might say that's wonderful, Gene, but I don't want to spend the money for the electrician to do this and all the expense of cutting holes into my drywall and such. Well, another option, like within the kitchen, there are light fixtures available that are battery operated and have motion sensors that, again, you can locate them close to the steps. So as you're going down the stairs, it triggers these lights. So it produces light onto the steps. And then once you're down the stairs after about a minute or so, then these lights go off. So it is an alternative source that you may wish to consider. Now, in my research, I was wondering, well, what's safer? Having wood steps or having carpeted steps? And after doing much reading, I came to the conclusion that it really doesn't make any difference, that they're about equally as hazardous. So what can we do? And so with wood steps, I'm not going to get into each one, but you can see with wood steps, there's a lot of different ways that you can create the steps to be able to be more non-slip, to make them more slip resistant. And there's even acrylic paints out there that have like a grit, like a sand grit mixed in with them, that you can paint them and it creates an automatic grit to that surface, and you don't even see it because it's an acrylic and matches the finish of your flooring. As far as carpeting, the only thing you can really do is just, just occasionally, just kind of tug on the tread, and then the riser, and just to make sure if you have any slack. And if it's loose, you want to go in there and try to refasten it to make it nice and tight. Again, so you don't have that slip factor occurring. So now let's look at moving on into bathrooms. Some of the situations we can look at there to make it better. Typically, a bathroom, you've got a tub, a tub shower combination, and then you've got a toilet that's kind of in between your lavatory sink and the tub. And then where the lavatory is, you've got a typical mirror, and then you've got a vanity light that sits over the mirror. So what are some things that we can look at, again, to make it a little bit more usable and safe for us? Let's talk about the vanity and a little bit, and what couple of things that we can do there. Now, the nice thing about vanities are, the newer homes, they're making vanities the same height as the kitchen countertops, and that's at 36 inches. But generally, the standard in the industry is more like 2'8" or again, 32 inches, which is borrowing from the ADA for someone who's in a wheelchair. That's is about the right height for accessing, doing a straight on accessing the countertop. So you can see with these three examples up in the top, ways that you could, even if you're not using a wheelchair, but you just want to be able to, again, sit down to use the vanity, you have that option to be able to face the vanity versus doing a side. And then you can see there's some that are built in that are designed that you just mount in the wall. And then in the one in the middle, again, a lot of times they always have that 4-inch kick space, where if you eliminate that, and it works out to be like a shelf, if you will, when you open up the cabinet, you cut that out, and now you can make that maneuverable to be able to access underneath it. And with this example, you can see where where actually there are two doors that can open up and slide in and get out of the way. But when they're not in use, it looks like just a standard, your standard vanity lab. So it works out quite nice as far as like a set of drawers. And then all the way to the left is where they have, they actually have designed it to coordinate it so it's attractive to in the kitchen area as far as the open vanity area. Now, let's talk about lighting a little bit. With the lighting, what's interesting, if you go to the lower right, having a night light into the bathroom is always a nice thing. And obviously, the easiest solution is just to buy a night light and plug it into one of the outlets and be done with it. However, if like in this example here, what the homeowner did was they created again, using a strip lighting, LED lighting, that and then tying that into a motion sensor, that someone who needs to use the bathroom, the light comes on, and now you've got a light source into that bathroom as you walk in. But anyway, in the middle, and then in the middle and to the right, again, what I found is, again, typically you find vanity lights that are over the mirror. And actually, the best place for a vanity light is on the side of the mirror, which I didn't know that. Again, it just makes it more balanced as far as the light source, and it kind of takes away some of the glare. And so you can see the two examples there. And if you go all the way to the right, one thing I wanted to mention is I talked earlier about how the kitchen, the heights in bathrooms now are 36 inches for vanities. Well, here's an example. Well, maybe you've got, your husband and wife team where one of the spouses that is more petite, the other spouse is taller. Well, why not have one set at the 32-inch height and then one set at the 36-inch height? So again, and then it's open underneath as well. So a lot of different ways you can handle that, handle that. Options are available to you. Now, something that it can be easily done as well is the standard height for a typical toilet is 15 inches. That's the standard in the industry. However, a raised, or what they call a comfort height toilet, is at 18 inches to 19 inches, and which is basically the same height as the chair that you're sitting on right now. It is a typical table height chair. So if it's something that if that's a comfortable height for you, it may make more sense to go with the comfort height toilet. Now, again, if you're more petite and such like that, the 15-inch height may be better for you. Now, shower heads. Shower heads, a lot of people are going with being able to have the one that you can hold in your hand. So a handheld shower head, but also having a shower head in a standard position. So there's three ways you can go. If you go all the way to the right, you can see that's very typical of the ones that you have that usually sit in a saddle, that you can pull it out and you can use it as a handheld, or you can put it back in the saddle. This one here actually works off of a magnet, but the principle is the same. The one in the middle is where someone still likes to have that fixed shower head, but want to have a separate handheld shower. So there are products available that still allow you that option. And then thirdly, the one actually I like the best is the one all the way to the left. And that's it's basically a handheld shower that fits in a saddle. But then what happens is it can ride up and down a vertical shaft. So if you're, again, and I installed this in one of my homes, that one client that's very petite, she's 5 foot, her husband's 6 foot. So it works out nice that when she uses it, she can bring the shower head down to work a little bit better for her at her height, and the husband can raise it up and make it more accessible and easier for him for his height. And then also, like I said, if you've got grandchildren, or if you're a household, you've got young children, again, it makes it easier for them. You can bring it down to their height so they can use it as well. So I really like this particular product as a way of solving height issues. Now let's talk about grab bars. Now the 80, what I like about universal design is again, universal design is a guideline. It's not a standard, it's not required. And because it's not a standard like the ADA is, where if you have a grab bar, it has to be so many inches off the floor. It has to be so many inches off of a corner. It has to be so many inches long. It has to be so many inches high. Whereas in residential, it can be anything it wants to be. It can take any shape it wants to be. So again, the kitchen and bath industry is really taking advantage of this and come up with all sorts of wonderful designs that, as you can see with these examples here, they don't even look like grab bars, yet they are a grab bar. The one all the way to the right, which is coordinated into a small shelf for putting toiletries onto it. And then in the upper area, again, you can see different designs. That one holds toilet paper, the other one holds a soap bar. And then one that, again, is a shelf that can also serve as a grab bar, but also looks and works as a shelf. And then the other one, all the way to the upper right, or kind of the upper left, pardon me, is this one actually can come down on it. It works off of a hinge. So where you have a toilet situation that's between a vanity or between the tub shower. But, if you still need that, that additional assistance to help you get on and off of the toilet, this is a hand grab bar that can come down when you need it, and then it can go back up and out of the way when you don't need it. So again, it's a really nice example of being able to provide different, depending on your mobility issues. And then obviously the lower one is a wonderful towel. It was a towel holder that works as a hand blower as well. So a lot of different ways of handling the mat. And it's also what's nice is you can put it anywhere, at any angle, whatever you want to do with anything. There's all sorts of ideas that you can do. So let's take a look at some of the other options that you might wish to consider to put in your home. Let's talk about carpeting real quick. So carpeting, if you're looking to replace your carpeting, and you're in a situation where, someone you may know, hopefully, or you may know, or you're just planning ahead, that you might end up with you having to have a walker, or worst case scenario, again, having to use a wheelchair. You want to go with a tight woven carpeting versus your typical plush carpeting. Plush carpeting feels wonderful, but unfortunately, it creates friction and makes it more difficult if you're using some type of a device with wheels. And also, as we age, we don't lift our feet up as much as we used to. So again, with plush carpeting, there is a tendency to possibly trip and fall. And then if you go with a tight woven carpeting, you want to make sure you do not go with a carpet pad. If you go with the carpet pad, again, now you're adding that cushion, so you're kind of not solving the problem, you're reintroducing the problem. So no carpet pad. And then again, if you look at the bottom, you want to have a carpet that's kind of neutral in color and something that does not blend in with your furnishings. You want to make sure that when you look in your room, that it's easy to identify the furnishings from the flooring. As you can see all the way to the right, granted, it's an extreme example, but again, it's got a lot of pattern to it, and the colors it's a lot of busy work. And you can see with that particular chair with the wooden legs, it kind of gets lost and you don't even really see it. So you might possibly, again, not see the legs and trip and fall. Now, here's one thing. If you don't get anything from this seminar, here's something that you really want to pay attention to and consider. Our door, when you look at our doors, you may, you have a 2'6" door is very typical into bedrooms. And, however, if you look to the upper right, or pardon me, upper left, where the ruler is, you actually, between the hinge and the door thickness, you lose 2.5, almost 3 inches of that opening to be able to walk in and out. Now you can see going to the right, when my mother was using a walker, she had to make a really straight shot or without banging her knuckles on the door jamb as she was getting in and out of that with the walker. Now, there's a product called a swing clear hinge. What it does, what's beautiful about it, is if you look at the lower left photo, it takes the door and in the hinge and it moves it completely out of the way. So now what happens is you capture that 2 to 2.5 inches that you lost. And now, as you look at that lower right photo, you can see where it's easier for my mother to get in and out of that walker using that walker. Again, 2.5 inches doesn't sound like much, but it does. It does become important, and it does makes it easy to get in and out. And also, to our surprise, to be honest with you, when my mother again, she ended up having to use as her balance became worse and worse. She ended up in a wheelchair, and we're going, oh, wonderful! Now what are we going to do to get her in and out of the bedroom? Well, she is a petite woman, so with a standard wheelchair, which is about 24 inches, 25 inches wide, maybe 26, we were still able to get my mother in and out of the bedroom without having to modify that door, which really surprised me. Now, the bathroom was a 2-foot 4-inch wide door. When we put the swing hinge in there, she was able to get into that bathroom with the walker, but unfortunately, she could not, we couldn't use a wheelchair to get her into that bathroom. But the thing is, these hinges are, now I haven't priced them out in a while. They're maybe about $12 a piece or what have you. They all vary in price. But, so you get 3 of them, you're out, what, $36, or heck, even if you were out 70, if they were 25 bucks a piece, that's $75. It's still cheaper than it would be to have to pull that door, to pull out that jamb, to have somebody cut that door opening, to put in a new 36-inch wide jamb, door jamb, and then having to replaster it, put all the casing in, hang the door, et cetera, et cetera. You're looking at probably a couple $1,000 to do that same work, whereas for $75, you can do it, and you can do it yourself. So I think, again, this was worked really, really well for my mother, and it's a really wonderful product in my opinion to be able to get more use out of that without having to make your doors wider. Okay, electrical outlets. The standard in the industry is the code says electrical outlet cannot be lower than 12 inches from the floor. So it's going to always be at least 12 inches, or what they call, you look at that left example, hammer height. A lot of electricians just take a hammer, put it up to the edge of the stud, and there's where they knock in the outlet, and there's your hammer height. But actually, what's a better height if you're remodeling your house, adding an addition to your home or what have you, it makes sense to place that outlet at 18 to 24 inches from the floor. Again, it makes it, you're not having to bend over as much to plug or unplug a light fixture or whatever, that you're using. And better yet, again, there is no restriction for height. And this example at the lower left, or lower right, pardon me, as you can see, where, in bathrooms where there's a light switch, usually for the vanity, and then there's an outlet right next to it to plug in your shaver or your hair blower, or what have you. Well, nothing says, you can't do that and locate it in a hallway. As you can see this example here. And then what they did was they actually put a night light, incorporated a night light, took a night light and used one of the outlets, and then they have the switch that they can use for the hall light as well. And then you still have an outlet to be able to use it for the vacuum cleaner or what have you. But again, even if you put the outlet at 36 inches high or what have you, why not? So again, it's something to think about, something to consider. Now, we're almost done. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. Hopefully, everybody, I can't see you all, so hopefully I'm not talking to an empty room yet. But anyway, lastly, I want to talk about smart technology. Basically, I just threw this out here because it's changing on a daily basis. Modern technology, you can't keep up with it. But I'm sure many of you are familiar with with either voice activated or your smartphone. You can use they've got doorbell cameras. You can regulate your temperature control in your home, remote locks, even the smart appliances that you can use your phone or voice activated. Lighting controls are also available to set how bright you want a room to be. So there's just lots of wonderful technology available to us to make things more easier and accessible for us and for our home. Before you leave, if you didn't already receive one, there were some, hopefully there are some brochures for you called the HomeFit Guide. It's got a lot of wonderful examples. But if you go to AARP.org/HomeFit, and you don't have to be a member of AARP, although AARP would love to have you as a member, but you can go to this site and you can download this HomeFit Guide. And they also have checklists that you can download to go do like a room-to-room analysis of what you can do to make your home more safe and usable. And then also talk about some of the things I've talked about as far as no cost and low cost ideas. And in conclusion, what I'd like to do is, a lot of people out there think, gosh, to add, to remodel my home or to put an addition to my home, that's an expense, and it is. However, when you consider how much it costs per month to go into like a senior apartments or assisted living, and not even to mention, a nursing home facility. Even if you did a remodel or an addition, if you can stay in your home for even 3 to 5 years more than maybe had you not done that, you have gotten your money back. And because it's just so expensive, the other routes, you'd be surprised. And it will not, everything we talked about today will not hurt your resale value of your home. So I think it's incorporating your home, making it more accessible. Again, it works for all ages, whether you're a child or whether you're someone who's in your 80s. Everything works for everybody, and that's kind of what the goal of aging in place and universal design is. I want to thank you very much for your time. I don't know if Brenda, if you're still there, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
You have any questions?
Let's see here.
I think the website of AARP probably have a lot of it. So zoning, the best place to go check for code measurements.
So the best for zoning,
Now what now?